All right. Thank you, everybody. This is the October 2025 installment of the Microsoft Data Platform Continuity Virtual Group. With me today is quite literally one of my oldest friends in the SQL Server community, Tim Radney, going to be talking about Azure data security. And quite frankly, security has to be part of your business continuity strategy. You can have the data, but if it's trashed or if nobody can get to it because it's encrypted and somebody forgot the key, aka a call last week I was on, it's good luck. Business is hosed. So with that, I want to turn that over to Tim.
Yes, sir. The number of times I've been called in, I mean, in across the past like 10, 15 years, things as simple as, oh, we migrated reporting services, right? We're not even aware of encryption and things, but we moved the SSRS database and now we're getting all these errors because why? The report server database is encrypted and they didn't back up that key because you weren't required to back it up to then start using reporting services. So that was many of us, our first kind of foray into encryption was that little pesky reporting services database. But let's just jump right on in. So Azure data security, just ways that we can protect our environment. I think we're all aware all the bad actors out there that are trying to get into systems. What are they trying to get to? The data. And us as data professionals, it's our job to protect it the best way we can. And very fortunately, we do have tools in our toolbox that are SQL Server specific or in that ecosystem that aren't at the corporate SecOps type level where we can do a little bit more to help protect than just firewalls and network security groups and encryption at rest, which is good, but almost a joke. All right, my bio, you can contact me, tim@timradney.com. I'm on X and LinkedIn and all those things, so feel free to reach out. Things that we're going to kind of go through is one, I like to just kind of hit what is that Azure platform as a service. When we talk Azure data security, pretty much everything I'm going to show you in demos is the box version, SQL Server, as well as it's available in platform, the SQL database managed instance. It's core infrastructure or core SQL things. But we have compliance considerations. What can we do with our backups? Various privacy and data protection tools that we're going to talk about. Threat and vulnerability protection, and then some various other security features. And then I just jump full into demos. So your platform as a service, we all by now should be aware of what is Azure, your AWS, all of these platform as a service or cloud providers. One of the really cool things that is still true today is it allows us to get out of the hardware business. So we can focus on our applications, growing our business, doing those things. Cloud can make things easier in some aspects. It can either be a cost savings or it can be a major cost increase. Depends on your environment. But some of the key things is a lot of the integration. I may not have the capability or the budget to go and buy these full solutions, but I can subscribe to those in the cloud. Even some of our monitoring tools, David and I were talking about earlier, is you can just plug into the market and get some of these things, Akamai, SQL monitoring tools, Qualys. I mean, all these different things you can just subscribe now if you're in cloud versus having to implement the full stack, on-prem. So a lot of good benefits. I won't read all the data on the slide. You can do that for yourself. The scalability and reliability in the SQL Server space. We have this platform as a service, and inside of that is your managed instance, your SQL database. You have your Elastic pool. In the whole Azure SQL, imagine we go a layer above, then you also have SQL Server on Azure virtual machines or Azure SQL VMs. But in that platform as a service, if you hear us talk about managed instance, Elastic pools, SQL database, those all kind of roll up into that, and we get the benefits of the platform as a service. So managed backups, threat detection, a lot of those things. Compliance. I could have a whole deck just on all the different compliance regulations that Microsoft has um, achieved, things that us as organizations, if you deal with healthcare or finance, you deal with credit card data, all of those things, SOC 1, SOC 2, those types of regulations, Microsoft has done their side in years and years. Gosh, I guess it's been about 6 years ago, maybe. I was able to participate in a white paper looking at what are the benefits of Azure SQL or the Azure space for PCI compliance compared to I'm a financial institution, we're on-prem, all the things that I have to go through in order to get my PCI compliance, that cardholder data, versus if those assets were in Azure. What I found was over 70% of the regulation, the things that I would have to jump through to achieve, are handled by Microsoft if those data assets were in Azure. The other 20 some odd percent, I think it was like 28%, were around documentation. What are our policies and procedures on how we handle onboarding and offboarding of users, how we get rid of data, from destroying it, things like that, not actual cost of going out and implementing technology. Most of the technology pieces were handled through Azure. So it's a major cost savings for a lot of organizations. But you can geek out here. The Microsoft compliance offerings used to be known as the Azure Trust Center. You can go and look whatever region of the world you're in, check it out and see if that's another pro in the column of moving to a platform as a service. All right, backups. Very near and dear to my heart is handling backups. I'm in the middle of a huge project right now for an organization to make sure that they have all the proper backups in the cross-region, primary data center, backup data center, tertiary data center to achieve their regulation. But in the platform as a service, we have point-in-time recoverability. So that whole thing of, hey, not just I need to restore to my last transaction log backup, but I need to get to, like right now, Eastern time, it's 2:09. I need to get to 2:08. So I could say restore this database up to 2:08, and it would restore my full differential if they exist, transaction log, that last log up to with stop at 2:08 p.m. Eastern. So depending on your tier, that is what determines the default backup retention, and you can change that. There's also the long-term retention. You can go out to like 10 plus years. So however you need to slice and dice it, you can accomplish that. But I just like that backups are handled for you. So at least my customers that are in managed instance and SQL database, I know they have backups. The privacy and data protection. So there's some really neat features that have been around now. Gosh, I can almost say 10 years. So SQL Server 2016 introduced a lot of these. Well, technically it was Azure SQL Database and then made available in SQL Server, but dynamic data masking. This one's still really cool for me because shops that I've done a lot of work with use reporting services and Power BI and different systems to expose data to their customers, their end users. So based on their login, we can change how that data appears in the report, in that result set. It requires no changes of the actual data. We're just masking how it appears in the result set. Now, for people like David that have sysadmin, well, it's not going to work because he's sysadmin. But if I were to connect in and I'm just a regular user, I'm not in an admin group, then this data would be masked for me. So we can limit the access to that result set. So it may be that based on my login into this application, I don't need to see customer phone number, the full account number, the customer's full email address. I'm in there just adding data, or I'm looking to see what their last few transactions were. I don't need to see everything else. Their social security number, just all these things that developers have put into the application that show up in the result set. I may not need to see all that to do my job. So mask it. dynamic data masking allows us to do that. Role level security changes things. Now, maybe I don't need to see certain customers based on my role within the organization. I've worked for companies where I'm also a customer of that business. So I worked at a bank. I was also a customer of the bank. Should that teller be able to pull up and look at my direct deposit? Should they be able to see information about my mortgage, different things that they have no business seeing, but it may be okay for other customers if they're doing that business, but maybe they're just nosy about what somebody else in the company makes or how much they're paying for their house. You could control that. So unless they're a admin level or supervisor level in the bank branch, they can't see where employee status equals yes or employee status equals 1. So with the role level security, you can control how much data the customer or the user can see based on their identity. That's good and bad, and we'll talk about it more. Transparent data encryption's been around 2008. I mean, a very, very long time. When it first came out, it was enterprise only. Now everybody gets it. It's on by default in SQL Database, managed instance. I think still if you restore your own database into managed instance, it's not on by default, but any newly created databases in the MI, it is. So what this does, it gives us encryption at rest. Thankfully, a lot of regulations, it's, hey, is your data encrypted? Yes, it's TDE at rest. All the major cloud providers, they also have additional, at the storage layer, the data is encrypted. So we're all encrypted at rest. That's awesome if somebody were to break in the data center and steal the storage array. You're protected. But if I am able to penetrate your web server, gain access, and able to query the database, well, that encryption at rest isn't helping, right? It's only if I were to steal the disk. And from most of the time, RAID takes care of that as well. But it's still good to have. We need it. You can bring your own key. You can do your own key management, or you can let the Azure stack do it for you. Always encrypted takes us to that next level. Now I'm able to encrypt the data in the database. So unless you have the encryption key, you're not able to query plain text data. It's all hashed. Now somebody is able to compromise, gain access in some fashion. If they don't have this key, that they're not seeing the important data. This is big, but it also a little bit of overhead. But don't go crazy and start implementing it everywhere, because there's certain challenges that we may have with this based on how you're encrypting. Are you doing deterministic? Are you doing randomized? How paranoid are you? What are your types of searches? Are you doing greater than, less than? Is it all equality matches where equals? That can have impact on the queries. So randomize, everything gets a random string. So if I encrypt 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's going to be unique every time that repeats. That's a little bit harder because now I have to decrypt everything to match. If I'm doing deterministic, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 is going to be encrypted the same way every time. So now I decrypt it once and search. That helps with like where clauses, joins, distinct, group by, all those equality comparisons. Randomize, more secure, but again, how big's the data set? How important is it to make every single thing unique versus deterministic? And I'll show you this in a demo. It's pretty cool to look at. Data discovery and classification. I actually have not played with this in a while. I should probably go check, make sure this still exists. But when if it does, and my apologies for not triple checking this one, it's been a minute. But what we were able to do, and I'm sure a version of this is still out there, we're able to go and search and look for patterns of data. So then we can classify whether this data is like for basically internal use. What level of protection does it need? So is it basically sensitive data? Then as we're adding tags to this data, we can then query that result to be able to report on, where does social security number exist? Where does credit card numbers exist in the system? Email addresses, all of that. And by labeling it, then we know where all we need to go and protect this data and who start looking at who has access to this data. So it's a very slick tool for getting into some of the compliance regulations and data, just general data governance and data management. Being able to report. And again, the tool was just making an assumption. If it's a string, hey, I'm going to say you could store anything here. Now you have to manually go and look and say, does this contain sensitive information? And pretty much if it's a system for like a ticket troubleshooting kind of thing, somebody's calling in and they're typing that free text field, most sensitive information possible because people are going to log Susie, social security number this or account number this, the security, they're going to type in account numbers, credit card numbers, email addresses, everything's going in that. So that I'm sure some of you are like, yep, I've seen it. It's like the most vulnerable system of any corporation is their email, because everybody attaches the most sensitive data in there. So threat detection built into your Azure. If you've ever used like Qualys, different systems for doing vulnerability assessments, the threat detection is an area where you can start looking at patterns. I have a user that on average, they're querying about 1 gigabyte of data a day, just between their job, how they're accessing the system and pulling data back. We're patterning it, and it's 1 gigabyte per day. They've already queried 50 gig today. Do I want to know about that if they start exceeding their normal thresholds? Probably. I mean, did they get compromised? Are they about to give notice? Are they pulling down the whole customer list? I mean, what's going on? So maybe I want to stop that, or maybe I want to get an alert and have to confirm, is this a normal pattern? And come to find out they're doing a big project and they're just pulling down the full backup before they do something else. Maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. But this is the type of stuff that would have stopped, say, the Target breach and Sony and all of these others if they had this type of assessment going to pattern and be looking at those anomalies and potentially shut them down before there's a before it's too late, before they get all the data. Vulnerability assessments, again, I've mentioned a couple of tools, but this is just to go and search, are you fully patched? Do you have risk for SQL injection? I mean, all types of patterns that it's basically scanning against a run book, a known list of potential vulnerabilities, and reporting back. So again, maybe you're not the one that patches the servers, but maybe you also want to be looking into these things and asking questions. It's like, hey, I just logged into a server that's running SQL Server 2016 RTM. That's a problem. Maybe you raise your hand and say, hey, I know we've been patching for the past 10 years, but how come this server is still running 2016 RTM? Or, hey, developer, how come we have plain text passwords in this config file? I thought y'all got rid of that kind of thing 15 years ago. They just missed it. So I used to do a lot with the Boy Scouts and like rifle, shotgun, marriage badge instructor and things, and the Cub Scouts, the BB gun, right? And would always say, who can yell ceasefire if they see something? And of course the kids, only you. I'm like, no, all of us. It takes all of us. If y'all see little Johnny running across the field to go look at his target, somebody screams ceasefire. because little Johnny shouldn't be out on the firing range. So it's all of us job, all of our job to make sure that we're secure. So you see something, just like in the airport, see something, say something. So with these vulnerability scans, we can run those. It's built into Management Studio. So let's all do our part. All right, some additional security features. What used to be Azure AD, now Microsoft Entra ID. Being able to have centralized control of user IDs and being able to use groups and things like that to assign permissions allow us to do so much more around role-based access. So we configure it once and then people get dropped into groups and removed from groups versus us having to assign individual permissions. Within Managed Instance, there's some additional auditing features that are able to track and write events, and then those can go out to Azure storage, and then log analytics and able to be picked up and ingested. Everything is TLS, so we have encryption in motion. So there's just layers upon layers upon layers of security, and we can step up and do a little bit more within SQL Server itself. So let's take a look at a few of those features. We can start with role level security. So this is where you control who can see what based on their login. I can't say I've used this one a whole lot. It's more around always encrypted and dynamic data masking, but I do know that there's people out in the field that do play around with this one. So I just mocked up a little demo to kind of show what you can do. So I'm just going to create a table and insert a few rows into it. So I'm just creating cells, and I have employee 1 and 2. And what I'm going to do is grant access to these accounts, boss and employee 1, employee 2. I'm just going to create a schema called security. And then I'm going to create a function on the username. And then I'm going to create a policy referencing this function on the sales table. And I'm turning it on. So if I were to query as employee 1, so select star from sales, I can only see where employee 1. Employee 2 can only see employee 2. But the boss can see all 6 rows. I always like to show this. So if you're playing around with this and all of a sudden people start screaming, you can quickly turn that off, and then everybody can see everything again. But again, I mean, this truly helps if you're trying to exclude maybe your line of business, you have a lot of celebrities, politicians, just whoever, basically your, I think of privileged accounts, right? Those that you want to protect their privacy and whatnot. Maybe you implement something like this and nobody can see those special customers or that certain level of customer unless you're a manager or some smaller department. So that's where this can really kick in. Again, I don't see this a whole lot, but it's there. The dynamic data masking, I see a whole lot more. And again, this is going to be on the AdventureWorks table, and we're doing this real time. So we're in AdventureWorks. We're going to create a user called DDM user, so dynamic data mask user. And I'm going to grant select on the email address and product tables. All right, we're going to create or alter the table email address, the column email address, and we're going to add the function email. But first, let me just show you what this table looks like. So I have email address, ken0@AdventureWorks, Terry0@AdventureWorks, right? So it's just email addresses. But we're going to add this masking function, and we're going to use the email function, which gives us the first character, and then x's@x's.com for everyone. So we're not going to be able to tell who this person was based on that. All right, well, what if we change this and we use the default function? default is just X's. So this one may be more secure, because what if it was bo@bo.com and we're only masking the first bit? I mean, it's still masked and we don't know the whole, everybody's a .com versus .org, .edu, .whatever. But maybe you just want to keep it very benign and just use the standard X's. All right, what about this one? We're going to do standard cost table, but let's look and see what this table looks like first. So standard cost is here. Notice we have zeros, and we're going to have zeros for like the first couple of hundred results. So $0 down until row 187. So we're going to alter table, production.product, alter column, standard cost with random. And then we query. Now standard cost, these first 187 rows have a value in there. Is this acceptable? What if I'm not aware that I'm querying a result set where this value is being masked, and now I'm going to take for granted that a hex nut 1 costs $7.71 per crate, per box, per whatever. So maybe this is good, maybe this isn't. This particular example, this would be really bad. But it's just to point out that be aware of what you're masking and how you're masking it. Because if, let's say, this is David's normal thing and he sees it unmasked, but he's on PTO and I have to step in and run these reports, and I'm providing this as the gold standard, as this is the actual amount. And I didn't have the same rights that David had, and now I'm providing bad data or alternative facts. So just be aware. I tend to like to use a masking function that lets folks know it's dummy data. It's not, couldn't be construed as real data. All right, how do you grant unmask? Well, we just grant unmask to the DDM user, and now we go back and query again, and now we see it's unmasked. So both email address and standard cost. All right, if we want to revoke, it's just meaning get rid of it. We revoke unmask to DDM user, and it's now masked back. All right, this one's kind of fun. So up here I'd used random. You can also manually put in values. So if we take a look at this production.product table again, and I want to look at the product number. So AR-5381, BA-8327. I could interject other data. So I'm going to do a partial. I want to show 2, and I'm going to insert a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now it's AR. Replace the middle 2 characters with 1 through 6, and then 81. And you can change this to whatever length. There's no, well, I'm sure there's a limit, but you can make it whatever. All right. How do you know what tables are masked? You can query where is masked equals 1, and we can see on the product number, the standard cost, and email address. Now I'm going to clean those up and drop them. When we come back, nothing's masked, and then I'll drop my user. What about always encrypted? Let me refresh my databases. This one, I'm going to create the database, security. I'll switch over to it. I'm going to create a table called account, and then I'm adding just random values. So all 1s, couple of column 1s and 2s, 3s. Then I'm going to create account DET for deterministic. I'll query, and these are identical. All right, now let's refresh, and we're going to do some encryption. So count, we'll do encrypt columns. We're going to encrypt the first account num, and we're going to do randomized. We'll let it auto-generate the key, and we'll proceed and finish. Now, the first one may take a minute. Because it's creating the key, doing all the things. When we run through this again for the next table, it should be almost instantaneous. Encrypt columns. We'll do the first column and deterministic. And then we query. Let me extend this out. And so what we can see is this was random. So each time it encrypted all ones, these are unique values. Versus deterministic, each time it encrypted all ones, it's the same. Notice our 3s are the same. Our 6s are the same. So this is much more supported when you're trying to do joins, those equality matches, versus I'm only looking for a single value. You randomize would work. So you have to know your result here, how people are querying these tables, how this would impact your workload before you start dealing with always encrypted. But these features are here. They exist, from row-level security, dynamic data masking, always encrypted, transparent data encryption. These are tools in our toolbox as DBAs to be able to help secure our environment a bit better. So if you can utilize it, awesome. It's extra layers of annoyance to the bad actors. I tend to kind of point out that in environments where this is what's protecting us, your company's pretty much is already lost. It's like, oh, what was it? There's something recently where, like, a company had gotten broken into, and similar to the whole ransomware protection and things like that. It's like if they've already gotten to the database, how many layers have fallen for them to get to that point? But with this, by being able to encrypt that highly sensitive data, I mean, we've heard of these data breaches where, yeah, they got in and maybe they got your name and your email address, but they didn't get your password. They didn't get your social security number. They didn't get your credit card number, because those items were encrypted. It wasn't just sitting in that backup in that database, unencrypted. So these are the tools that help us protect the highly sensitive information, not just the PII data or personal identifiable information. So have fun. All this code is out on timrandy.com. So you can just go to my website, click on presentations, and all the demo code is there for you to play around. It's AdventureWorks database, so all the scripts will work, or it's like in this case, we're just creating an empty database and a table and having fun with it. But check it out, try it, and see how it can work for your organization. But yeah, the biggest thing for us to do is least privilege, only grant access to to what's absolutely needed. Try not to be sloppy and just give service account sysadmin where something lesser is available. And yeah, have good backups that you can recover. And hey, there is backup encryption as well. You've built into SQL Server.
Awesome.
All right.
Is there any questions that anybody has today? I don't see anything in the chat so far. And if not, give everybody a little bit of time back. And if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, do not hesitate. Reach out to Tim, reach out to us at the user group here. We're happy to answer your questions. No strings attached, no marketing. We never work like that. And quite frankly, if you have a topic you want to see, let us know. We have been known to write custom sessions for people based on really good questions that we get. It's a lot of
We need
fun.
ideas.
Yeah,
That's where this one came from. I was doing like
yeah,
backup encryption and just talking about the other things, and somebody was like, "You should just do a session on always encrypted, dynamic data masking, row level security." And I mean, this session gets picked often enough, but not as much as my backup and recovery and common SQL mistakes. But yeah, we're always looking for ideas for that next session. So please, do let us know.
definitely. Awesome. Well, I will say thank you very much. And next month is the past summit. So I don't think we're going to do one next month, but we're probably going to do a big holiday gathering Q&A kind of session here in December. So stay
Yes.
tuned for that. And I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right. Well, thank you all.